All right, welcome to our tutorial where we're going to be looking at portrait photography. Portrait photography is definitely one of the big things that most people want to do when they get a brand new camera. You're shooting your babies, you're shooting your friends, maybe you're even getting into it a little bit more on a professional side to actually take pictures for other people and their families. Either way, what you want to do when you're getting into portrait photography is really focus on some techniques. One of the techniques that you really want to start in on is where you're going to shoot, how you're going to get the people in there, how do you make them feel natural, various things like that. The lesson gives you a lot of good tips, but today I wanted to show you what I kind of do when we go out on location for any kind of normal shoot. I'll take you here with our model in just a couple of minutes, and we'll go down in one of the alleys and I'll show you a couple of the techniques that I use. All right, here we've got our model Doug. My brother here is going to be coming and helping us out a little bit here just to give us some ideas on what it means to get on location and actually shoot portraits. What's interesting about this is that you've got lots of different options and you don't have to actually go too far. You can go around your house, you can go around your neighborhood. It's really pretty easy to find good locations. Sometimes you just need a wall, some bricks, and a little bit of texture in there. It can look really neat, but really the cool thing about photography on a portrait level is that you don't want to get a whole lot of the extra surroundings in there. So the less, in this case, the better. Focusing in on the main subject is our goal here. So we're gonna try a couple of different poses here, and I'm gonna show you how these kind of shots can actually make things work.
Okay. So this first pose, first thing we tried here for this shot, it did pretty good. I liked the angle you had on here, but there's a little bit of something that I was trying to go for that didn't quite work here. I really wanted that wall to kind of blur off into the background, to kind of disappear. It's it's a classic look that we're kind of looking for. And in this case, my perspective was not quite at enough of an angle to really get the wall to disappear off. I shot this at about f4, so it was a pretty wide aperture, but it just still wasn't quite enough to give me that nice blur off into the background. It's a classic look and we were going for it, so we tried a little bit different thing here in the next shot just to see if we can get that to work better. Alright, now what works pretty good on this shot? Yeah, he's got a good pose there going on, he's got a decent look and smile. You can kind of see how pushing the wall to the back there with a wider aperture, I think I was shooting at about f4 here on this one. You can see how it kind of just blurs things off into the background, which is great. That's exactly what we want. But one of the big things that jumps out right from the beginning is some of the distracting elements in the background. You can kind of see this planter thing. I think it's actually an old washing machine or something like that. But anyway, uses a planter in the back there and totally takes away from the subject. The person, the viewer, is kind of looking off there into the back going, oh, what does that say? Or what is that thing? That's totally not what you want. You want the main person to be the subject here and the only thing that the viewer really jumps in on. So we've got to frame this a little bit differently so that the background elements don't take away from the main subject. Alright, finally, third time's a charm here. Changed things up just a little bit, added that perspective that I liked, and cut out that nasty, weird planter thing in the background that takes away from the subject. And this setup was pretty good. I actually liked how this one kind of turned out. I get some of that blur with the background in there, but I don't get any distracting elements. The only thing that I would say was maybe a little bit distracting is the diamond-shaped thing up on the wall next to his head, but honestly, you can kind of Photoshop that stuff out later if you feel like it, or in this case, it doesn't really matter that much. Notice he did change his pose up a little bit. I had him put his leg up on the wall there. It's again kind of a pose you see a lot of. It's a nice, easy, relaxed kind of a look, and it just adds a little bit more to how he actually is standing there in the image. It makes things seem just a little bit more interesting from a viewer's angle instead of just standing there leaning against the wall. So you keep that kind of stuff in mind when you're kind of posing things around, but you always want to change it up. If you hold a pose for too long, most of the time your subject's going to get kind of bored, or they're just going to get tired, and the pose is going to stop looking natural, even if it did right at the beginning. So big recommendation is always change things up. Every couple of shots, you always tell them to try something different. Gives you a little bit of chance to practice and try things out, but it also keeps them interested in what's going on. And finally, for this last shot, I kind of did a little bit of everything that I was looking at, but in this case, I think I wanted to just crop out as much as possible, get rid of all the weird distractions on the wall, any of the little windows in the background even, and I wanted to just get in right there close on the subject. This is a great way to do that, just zoom in. This way it blocks out a lot of the extra things there that might distract the viewer, but at the same time, it really gets in close and gives the viewer an extra sharp detailed picture of who you're taking pictures of. Now when you crop in close like this, a lot of people kind of crop in at the wrong point or the wrong angle in the picture. You'd never want to crop at any major joint in the body. That comes up a lot in my photo critiques actually for some of the assignments that are turned in. Don't cut at the waist, don't crop it at the knees or the ankles, the neck, or anything else. You want to crop things in so that it's somewhere in the middle of those, never a major joint. In this case, it's a little bit above the waist, so it's kind of more of a head-shoulder shot, and it works out really nicely. obviously, again, because there's that blur that goes off in the background. But in this case, it just focuses on the main subject. Nothing else there to distract you. The crop works out pretty well. He's got a good look. And then you'll notice I had him turn his head straight on towards the camera. A lot of times I don't have the subject do this simply because it can kind of add some weird shadows. But here I thought it was a real powerful look. For guys, especially in pictures, having them look straight on at the camera just conveys this sense of power, like they're totally focused in on you, and it just gives a great view to the thing. So it's this kind of a picture. That's kind of how I wanted to play it up a little bit. We try different stuff. Things, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Either way, you definitely got some ideas here to kind of help you figure out how to make your portraits better. So I'm going to show you one more technique on how to do a little bit more of a relaxed pose in kind of an urban setting here. Stay tuned.
Well, one of the big things that you want to make sure whenever you're shooting a portrait is that the subject is nice and relaxed. If you don't have a relaxed subject, or if they aren't comfortable with the pictures being taken, they're going to look awkward. So you've got to kind of give it some time. A lot of times when I'm first getting to know a subject, I just take whatever shots there are. Honestly, I'm not even trying to make them any good. I'm just trying to get the person comfortable in front of the camera. After 5 or 10 minutes of that, usually people are getting a little bit more comfortable and it shouldn't be as big of a problem. So the last thing that I wanted to make sure everybody knows about is that you've got to be careful of what's in your backdrop. If there's stuff in there or if there's too much backdrop, you're going to lose the focus in it. So be sure as you're kind of moving through the different poses and different ideas, be sure you're always looking behind the subject. In this case, the pictures back here, they'll probably turn out pretty good, but I'm going to want to make sure that I crop out that menu in the back. If there's words or other things like that, super big distraction away from the main subject. Again, with portraits, the subject is always going to be the person. You don't want anything else to take away from that person that you're taking the pictures of. So watch the backdrop, make sure nothing is going to take away from that. Okay, looks like here is our first shot here, and this one came out all right. It kind of has some of the ideas for what we're doing. I kind of went in a little bit wider angle on this one, but it's still a little bit distracting. Even though I did cut out that menu in the background, the pose is a little bit awkward, wasn't quite what I wanted, so I did try to zoom in a little bit more. You can kind of see what the result looked like here for that. It still isn't quite the right pose. Again, having his neck turned there to the side was just a little bit awkward, didn't quite give the look that I was going for. It's a nice non-cluttered background, which is always nice, but that still didn't quite make up for the pose. So I came around from a different angle, just tried out something new. In this case, I thought it worked out a lot better. He was just a little bit more natural looking. He didn't look quite as pained or a little bit awkward with his neck pose back there. And even with the menus in the back, I just figured I could zoom in a little bit more and change my angle just slightly with this as the result. And in this case, I think it worked out just right. This for me is actually the best shot of that pose and that angle. It worked out really nice to have some extra little pieces of the menu there, but not too much to get it distracting. So anyway, they had a nice little pseudo half smile there, kind of a grin that kind of worked out pretty nice. And in the end, I think this one was definitely the best shot. So thanks again. Hopefully this lesson has been something good for you and you've gotten a little bit extra ideas out there. Hopefully it inspires you to go out with some of your own friends or family and just take them out anywhere you can find somewhere just nice and easy. Get them casual feeling, make them comfortable in front of the camera, and then just shoot away. Thanks again for being here with us in this tutorial, and we will see you in the next lesson.